Hey everybody, welcome to my Suburban Oasis. My name's Soleil and I garden in a 6A in mid-Michigan, but today I am down in New Orleans, Louisiana, and I am in the beautiful botanical garden that they have here. I thought that everyone would enjoy coming to a little warmer climate along with me to check out what they're growing down here and to see some blooms and some greenery. It sure has lightened my mood and I hope it lightens yours. All right, let's take a look around. So as you come in through this entrance, you see this beautiful fountain surrounded by these plantable packets, and I'll get a close-up in a minute of these. They almost remind me a bit of milk crates that they have created a living wall out of, and it's really a beautiful technique to use to be able to plant things. I'm seeing dragonflies and pollinators. They have some beautiful foxglove already in bloom here, along with scabiosa and some gorgeous pansies and delphiniums in the back here. But you can see they've used these little crate-like containers that are actually plastic, and they have planted them up with ferns and grasses and all sorts of different kinds of plants to create a living wall, and it is beautiful. And then down here we have a beautiful pathway with wisteria covering it. Isn't that a gorgeous tunnel? You can see at the end of this tunnel there's a beautiful focal point. There is a gorgeous fountain that is going, and then there are plantings alongside of all of the tunnel. On the one side we have herbs and vegetables like kale and sorrel that I can see, and then we have some parsley, maybe some lovage, some dill. And you can see they have a conservatory over here that we'll go into as well. And just some cute little dahlias on this side. So this side has more flowers. And we have some cosmos, which are really pretty also. And they have some painted up rain barrels back there. Okay, we're gonna go in the Japanese garden now and see what's behind these bamboo walls. Very beautiful undulating greenery along with the Japanese maple and paths. In Japanese gardens, it's very important to use gravel as a technique for water. And then many of the mounding shrubs are considered like mountains. At least that's my basic knowledge of the Japanese garden design. I don't know a lot about it, but it sure is pretty. We have some bamboo in here. Very peaceful and serene Japanese gardens are. And they have the Japanese maples pruned really, really well, so you can see some of their gorgeous bark and their undulating branches. And then they also use a lot of stone in Japanese gardens. Those might actually be representative of the mountains. If you know, please feel free to comment below. I also see some stones hanging from that tree back there. That's one way to try to get Japanese maples to have their branches grow in a certain direction or at a certain height. The bamboo is really tall. Next to the Japanese garden is the New Orleans Historic Train Garden. The trains are not running today, they only run on the weekend. But this is some miniature replicas of New Orleans planted amongst the garden. And some of them are made out of natural materials. Look, I wonder if you guys see the cat on the roof over there. Can you see it in the distance? So, for example, this is the old Crescent City Billiard Hall. And then lots of train track running throughout. Set up just the way that the city is. It's a firehouse that's on Magazine Street. Very prominent street in New Orleans. We almost have the garden to ourselves today. Well, here we are going down the rest of the LA here that is really beautiful with a focal point. And unfortunately, we lost some of the audio, so I'm doing a voiceover now for you for the rest of this. But you can see there's some really gorgeous Japanese ferns alongside the right here. And then on the left, we have the cast iron plant. These are so huge, and you can actually grow these as a house plant. They're really slow growing, but they are beautiful. They seem to grow really, really well in this climate down here. So at the end of this LA, we will see that there is a fountain and a statue. It is absolutely gorgeous. And it's just so lush and green right now, whereas back home, everything is just barely starting to bud out. As we come to the end here, we have these beautiful staghorn ferns that have been put alongside both sides of this beautiful tunnel. And as we come out of here, we're going to be coming to a formal rose garden area. Now, this formal rose garden has some shrubs in it that I'm not sure exactly what they are. If you are from the South and you recognize the type of shrub this is, please put it in the comments so people know. But they've really been pruned to this kind of wave shape, and then inside each one of the beautiful sculptural shrubs is a pocket of roses. And then we have a fountain just bubbling in the center with some gorgeous brickwork around it as well to set it off. But you can see they have taken a lot of time to really sculpt this area. And all of the roses are blooming. I can tell you that in Michigan right now, the roses are really just barely starting to put on some of their new growth, and it's a good time to be pruning those right now. So this one is absolutely gorgeous. And back behind us here, we have some beautiful trees that are in full bloom, along with a really large live oak tree. The live oaks down here just really have been striking, and I just love the way that their branches go so far out. So here's a gorgeous fountain that's providing some really nice soothing noise, which unfortunately you guys cannot hear because of our microphone issues, but I assure you it was a really nice backdrop to this setting. And this is a really full sun area, which the roses love. And we have some beautiful white roses over here that are beginning to bloom. Lots of gorgeous pathways throughout this entire botanical garden. Just really impressed with it. I've enjoyed walking through it so far. And you can see we have some additional roses here that are really just heavy and laden with blossoms. They did use pine straw to mulch these rose garden beds as well, which is something that I actually saw being sold at like gas stations as little hay bales of pine straw, which is really interesting. I love the idea of using pine straw, but we don't have that opportunity in the north. It definitely gives things a whole different look. So here we are at the very end of the allée, and you can see we have some gorgeous peachy foxgloves along with some beautiful white alyssum down at the bottom that just makes an amazing statement leading up to this golden statue. There's lots of pollinators all around, and I'm seeing dragonflies and bees and butterflies, and it's just gorgeous. And then you can see they've started planting some pine trees over here to the left to create a nice forest grove for what they have as an azalea and camellia garden. The azaleas and camellias probably were blooming, at least the azaleas, really well a couple weeks ago, so we're sort of at the end of that. We're just getting buds on them in Michigan, but here in the south, in Louisiana, you can see that many of the azaleas are past their prime already. But all of these young pine trees are going to create a really nice upper story because azaleas are an understory plant, and they sure will enjoy having that more natural environment to grow in. Again, they've mulched with the pine straw here to create that natural effect, which I think is really lovely. Now, as we walk away from that, there's another gorgeous fountain under a live oak that is just dripping with Spanish moss. It is so gorgeous. And it's a beautiful, beautiful day here. Everything is so green and lush and warm. Now there's also a sculptural garden that's not far from this botanical garden as well, with bridges that go over ponds and fountains, and it's just beautiful. So I highly recommend if you are in the area to stop by. So this is walking down and actually back towards the entrance of the botanical garden where you see this dome, and this alley is really very formal. We have some grass underfoot and then the evergreen hedges along both sides, and I'm not sure what this shrub is. It reminds me a lot of a yew bush. However, it is not a yew bush. So again, if you're from the south and you know what that is, please let us know in the comments below. Isn't that live oak gorgeous? Just look at those huge branches. They can live for so long. They're just a really impressive tree. And throughout the garden, they actually have illuminated them using rope lights for the evening, and I think it would be really beautiful to see that to pull up in the evening. Well, let's head inside of this conservatory of the two sisters here and see what they have. We have some beautiful agaves just outside the door. And inside here we have an urn. And oh my goodness, look at this begonia. This begonia is something I would grow in a small pot at home, but that's about 7 feet tall here in this conservatory with the nice warmth and humidity. And this gorgeous bubbling fountain urn. A lot of bromeliads here as well. And then we have the living fossils room. And this is filled with very lush green growth of ferns. All sorts of different kinds of ferns. It's very humid and hot in here, which is just how the ferns like it. And
they are beautiful. This one reminds me of the maidenhair fern. But they actually, because they're a botanical garden, and I highly recommend that, if you're learning to garden, that you visit local botanical gardens as well, because they have tags just about everywhere to tell you what type of plant it is. And that way you can find out a lot about different plants and the kind of habitats that they like to, live in. This is a beautiful fernery where we have a little pond with a waterfall as well. And if you can see on the sides and in the back here, we have living green walls. So they've taken some wire mesh and hung it up on the walls, and then they have planted the ferns right into it, and it really has provided a very, very lush, soft effect that makes you feel like you're in a fern jungle. And I just love it. We have some more staghorn ferns here. This is a giant, giant ball of staghorn ferns. Those are often mounted to pieces of wood or bark. So many different types of ferns. Some of them are really tall and large, and some of them are much smaller with very well divided leaves. Here you'll see a crocodile fern, which is aptly named because it looks a lot like crocodile skin. And I've grown that one as a house plant before. And over here in the corner we have what is referred to as a giant fern, which also comes by its name pretty honestly, because that is a giant fern if I've seen one. Well, let's head across to the other side of this conservatory and see what we have in store for us over here. This is beautiful. I see some orchids right as we're walking in with some underplanted bromeliads. And right above those bromeliads, we see a gorgeous monstera. I wonder if that's the Thai constellation. That variegation is not super common and can be hard to come by. People do grow it as a house plant, but it does get very, very big. So if you find one of those Monstera deliciosas, make sure you have room for it. This looks like a silver sword philodendron. I have one of these as a house plant, but it's definitely not even close to the size of this one. Very, very beautiful plant. Look at these orchids. Some beautiful white blooms on those. And we have a waterfall here in the back with a little cave. Some Janet Craig Jacinas. I actually have one of these as a house plant. It's a very easy to grow house plant. Another type of Dracena. I can't remember the name of this one off the top of my head. Then we have some alocasia. Sometimes this one's referred to as the African mask plant, and it's because it looks a bit like an African mask. Those require a little bit of, I feel like they're a little bit more finicky, but they can be grown as a house plant as well. Now we have some pothos growing along here, so that's a very easy to grow house plant. And some calathea. Calathea is a little bit more difficult to grow, I've found, because it requires much higher humidity, which is really easy to come by here in the south and in this conservatory. It's definitely warm and humid in here. I think this one is an Alocasia zebrina. You can see like the zebra stripes that it has on its stems. Another nice house plant, if you like a big house plant. And here's one that I've also grown as a house plant. This is a philodendron birkin. You can see some of the new leaves, they come out almost white and then they begin to have green stripes on them, and I just find the variegation and the pattern on these leaves to be very beautiful. And they're fairly easy to grow as well, I think. And more orchids along here. These are beautiful orchids. We have some pink ones this time over here. Very brightly colored. And also some very small red ones. And these are really big. It's hard to tell with this camera, so I'll put my hand up next to one here so you can see they're almost as big as my hand in terms of the size of the blooms on these. Just mega blossoms. Thanks for joining me today. We'll see you next time. Bye!